Today we're going to talk about the captive care of Burmese star tortoise hatchlings. But first I want you to take a look at the pattern on the back of that Burmese star tortoise and take a look at that silver wire inlay that I did on that spoon carving knife from a previous video. We are going to incorporate that type of silver wire inlay into a project that will support tortoise conservation. Tortoises are having a rough go at it these days, and with this upcoming project we're going to use that particular design of silver wire inlay, and we're going to use it on a completely different knife on a different project, and we'll make a series of videos with that and use the proceeds of the sales of that knife to fund tortoise conservation through the Turtle Survival Alliance. So let's talk about Burmese star tortoises. Burmese star tortoises are a critically endangered tortoise from Myanmar. They became basically functionally extinct in the wild, but in 2003 they figured out how to do the captive breeding of this tortoise, and from 2004 to 2017 they went from having about 200 tortoises to about 14,000 tortoises due to captive breeding. So now they have reintroduced at least 1,000 of them into the wild, and we're hoping that through captive breeding and conservation they will be able to get this particular tortoise species back on its feet. But a lot of that has to do more with the suitable habitat and keeping poachers from stealing the tortoises. Anyway, so on to the captive care. Right now, here is one of my tortoises, and what we're doing here is just showing you guys each individual tortoise. And what I do in the mornings is I weigh them in grams, and then I soak them. But I like to track it every day. I'm hearing monthly is generally good enough, but coming from my falconry background where you weigh at least every day, I just kept that going, and I like having the information. One thing that you're looking to do with these guys is getting a nice smooth shell. The first two tortoises I show you have extremely smooth shells. The final tortoise, this guy right here, has got a little bit of bumpiness to him, but not a terribly large amount. But he or she, it's hard to tell the sex on these guys, but he or she is living in the same place, eating the same foods, and yet has just a tiny bit of bumpiness to him. You can't actually tell the sex of these tortoises until they're about 2 years of age, and then the differences in characteristics start to show themselves. Here I am soaking them. Soaking your tortoise every day, at least for the first couple of years, has been advised heavily by several people, including the breeder that I got these from, Ken Siffert. I soak them for about 30 minutes, or at least until they've used the restroom. If they've used the restroom, I feel like I've done my job. And then on to diet. Ideally, you're going to get a lot of cool stuff from your yard. Here are dandelion greens. We've got some clover. They like both of those things fairly well, especially the dandelion. I get various grasses, and I get kind of varying success with that. So there was a broader leaf grass, here's a narrower leaf grass, and some of the grasses they just don't like, and some of them they'll eat a little bit of. Here's some plantain. There are different varieties of that. And here is some wild onion. So really I like to get a bunch of that stuff. Sometimes you can use some things from the grocery store. Here is some red leaf lettuce. I'll use green leaf lettuce, romaine lettuce, and then I chop it up for them, especially the grasses. I feel like maybe if it's kind of snuck in there more, they'll eat a little bit more of it. And then also here I have some zucchini. Now, I don't necessarily feed all of these things on the same day. I'm just kind of showing you a variety of things. This would make an excellent meal, and they did seem to like it that day. Here's also some Missouri tortoise diet that I have soaked in water for a few minutes to let it soften up. And so some days I'll do maybe some lettuce and some Missouri, or I'll do the lettuce and the zucchini. And usually when I'm doing this stuff from the yard, I'll just do all grasses and weeds on that day. That way they're surely going to eat some of the stuff that's good for them, instead of just picking out their favorite things. Like they'd probably just eat the lettuce or just eat the Missouri if I had used it instead. But anyway, this is back in their home. and I'll use these little terracotta trays that you put underneath a pot. It's very shallow so that they don't drown, which is also something that's important with the soaking, is that I only put maybe up to about 1/3 of their shell, because they will flip themselves over, especially if you have a straight-sided container. So I like to have kind of a tapered container that gets a little wider. That way they're less likely to flip over. I'm using orchid bark for the substrate, and they like to have a very humid environment. So I have a closed container, and here you see my UV lights, you see my ceramic heating element, and I have a spotlight there. It's actually a floodlight. That way I have a hot end of the cage, I have a cool end of the cage, and I'm keeping the temperatures at a minimum of 80 degrees and more like 90 to 100-ish degrees on the hot side. And I keep the humidity at 80%, which is very important. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. I'm not an expert in all of this stuff, but I can send you on to some more resources. And be sure to watch out for the knife that I'm going to be making to benefit tortoise conservation. Just this past 6 months, they have recovered over 17,000 tortoises in Madagascar that were being smuggled, and that's a huge number to care for, and the Turtle Survival Alliance is playing a huge part in getting doctors and volunteers out there to help with the care of these many tortoises that need to be released. But first we got to get them in good health first. So be sure to watch out for that knife, and thank you again for watching.